One of the most exciting areas of golf equipment is the compact forgiveness iron sector, and there are a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, they all look absolutely fantastic, and secondly, they're used by probably the widest spectrum of golfers, players who are out on tour right through to sort of mid-handicap amateurs. And what I've got in my hands here are 5 of my favourites currently on the market. So we've got the Callaway Epic Pro, the Mizuno MP-18 MMC, the Titleist AP2, the TaylorMade P790 and the Ping i200. Now what we wanted to do was to put these irons up against each other in a host of different categories to see how they all perform. So we did the test yesterday at the Foresight Sports headquarters using a GC quad launch monitor, using premium balls to get all the data that we needed, but then we also came here to West Hill to test them out on the golf course in a sort of real life environment. And hopefully by splitting out the performance in certain key categories, you'll get an idea for which one of these irons is best aimed at you. So let's take a look at the results. Okay, so starting with the looks, I'm going to begin by flashing up onto the screen the address view of each of these irons, and you will notice just how similar they are. That's because the equipment manufacturers know exactly what golfers in this category are looking for. The differences between them are virtually impossible to detect. Perhaps the TaylorMade is a fraction thicker in the top line. I also thought that perhaps the Titleist was a little bit more inviting to hit, but that's probably because it has more loft than the other clubs. So really what I'm judging on here in terms of look is the shelf appeal of these products, and this is really important because these products are supposed to look fantastic. So what I have in my hands here are my 3 favourites. The real surprise package, I think, is the P790 from TaylorMade. They haven't overdone the techiness of the look. I think they've been possibly in my eyes a little bit guilty of that in the past. This one looks cleaner, it looks more simple, but it still has that really modern, techie look to it. I think it looks fantastic on the shelf in the bag. The other 2 irons I really like the look of are the Mizuno MP-18 and the Titleist AP2. It is really so hard to choose between them in terms of look. They look fantastic. The one that I would probably go for ahead of all the others would be the Titleist AP2. Okay, so I have in my hands here my 3 favourites in the field category, and there's actually possibly a bit of a surprise package in there, and the Ping i200 has made it, and that's because it's not forged. You wouldn't expect it to feel as good as the other 2, but it absolutely does. It feels really solid through the ball. I think the Ping engineers understand just how important feel is to people in this category. The other 2 irons I really like are the Mizuno and the Titleist. Which one would I go for? It's so hard to tell. I think I would be edging towards the Mizuno. I think they work really hard on the sound of their products. Through impact, it just feels so solid, such a crisp strike through the ball, and is something that if you have had traditional irons in the past, you'll recognise and you'll really love. Okay, so it's on to the interesting one, and this is where you're going to start to see where the performance differs between each of these golf clubs. I'm going to flash up onto the screen each of the data sets that I was able to get with each club, and we're going to run through them one by one. So starting with the Callaway. So I was carrying the ball 177, but crucially there was only a 4-yard difference between my longest and shortest shots. Ball flight was good, it was launching high and spinning relatively low. The Mizuno, again, really impressive distance at 179. That's really good for me for a 7 iron, and the difference between longest and shortest shots was 8 yards, so a little bit more than the Callaway. Onto the TaylorMade, and if I was picking my winner based purely on distance, there would be a clear winner, and that would be the TaylorMade. I was able to carry this a whopping 188, which is huge, but with that extra distance comes a little bit less consistency. The difference between my longest and shortest shots there was 11 yards. Now also, obviously it's the strongest loft of the irons that we tested, but look at how it's launching and spinning. You still get good launch, you still get enough spin to get the ball up into the air. Onto the Ping, and crucially, as Ping always do, they make their clubs easy to hit, so they're easy to launch. Launching at 22 degrees, spinning at 5705 means you don't have to swing this particularly hard to get it going nicely up into the air. And just the 6 yards difference between the longest and shortest shows that the performance was very, very good indeed. And then finally onto the Titleist. It was the shortest of all the irons I tested at 169, but it's the most lofted, so you'd expect it to be. Again, it launches high at 22 degrees and it spins really nicely at 5,500. The most important figure to look at with the Titleist iron is that difference between my longest and shortest shot. So there really is an awful lot to unpick there. The TaylorMade is definitely the longest, as you'd expect it to be, but it's also the least consistent in terms of those distance numbers. The Titleist is the most consistent, but it's also the shortest, as you would expect it to be. The Callaway and the Mizuno sit nicely in the middle, I'd say. They offer that consistency, but they also offer good raw distance numbers, and the ping is really easy to launch. Hopefully that offers you some guidance as to what to expect from each of these irons. If it was me, if it was my choice, I think the Callaway Epic Pro, the performance is really hard to beat. That combination of good raw distance, but also consistency of distance, and it also launches well, it also flies well, makes this one a really, really strong performer. Okay, this is a really difficult one for me to offer any really useful steer as to which one's the most accurate. I think they all perform very, very similarly. And you know, I'm a 5 handicapper. I do hit shots that sometimes don't go where I want them to. For me, both out on the golf course and on the launch monitor, the Titleist and the Mizuno are probably the most accurate. There wasn't a lot in it between these two and the other clubs in the test. Okay, so on to price, and what we're looking at here is the recommended retail price per club. The ping comes in at $120. The TaylorMade comes in at $130, then you have the Titleist and the Mizuno, both of which are $150, and then you have the Callaway, and this sits at the very, very far end of the market at £224 per club. Now, when you multiply that out by the number of golf clubs you need in a set, you realise this is a very expensive golf club indeed, and it was designed to be that way. They didn't really want to handcuff their engineers by getting materials in there that were less expensive, so this was always going to come out as a little bit more expensive. It is significantly more expensive than the others. One thing I would say is that within this market, as we've seen through the test so far, the differences between the products are very minimal, right from the looks through to the performance. So price inevitably will play a factor in which iron you go for. And I have to say that at £120 per club, the Ping i200 represents really fantastic value for money. Okay, so on to the verdict, and before I tell you which of the irons I would choose to put into my bag, just a couple of key points. Firstly, we really are spoilt for choice in this sector of the market. The golf clubs all look absolutely fantastic. Secondly, if you haven't tested irons in this category for a while, I would suggest you do so. It might be that you haven't upgraded your irons for 10 years, 8, 7 years, whatever it might be. You will notice there is more performance packed in there. You'll probably hit the ball further, you'll probably find they are slightly more forgiving. Across the board, whichever brand you decide to go for. But if it was me, if it was my choice, which one would I put into my bag? I think it would be the Mizuno MP-18. It just offers that fantastic blend of different performance attributes. Yes, it looks fantastic. You'd expect that from a Mizuno. Yes, it feels fantastic. Again, you'd expect that from Mizuno. But it also offers fantastic raw distance. You know, for me, knowing that I can hit a 7-iron almost 180 yards through the air, that's really impressive. But the consistency of those distances is also very strong, and it all comes through at a price that I think is really good value for money. So for me, it would be the Mizuno. For you, you might well want to go for something else for a very good reason. Whatever you go for, as I always say, make sure you get fitted, make sure that those launch numbers, those spin numbers are right. That will give you the right carry yardages, and that will make sure that if you are investing in a set of irons, it is expensive, and if you are investing, it's exactly right for your game.